Teacher City. 2 miles southeast of the big book building, Bradley climbed a small hill. From the summit, he saw the tall, red brick skyscrapers of a bustling metropolis, Teacher City. He beheld a breathtaking panorama of lights and signs and yellow buses moving along a maze of streets, and hundreds of doll-sized creatures crossing the streets that could be only one thing: crabby teachers. But separating him from the great city was a wide river. It flowed with something white, thick, and very slow moving. Bradley climbed down to the river bank. He stuck his finger into the white stuff. Glue, he exclaimed. A whole river of glue. According to his map, Bradley stood on the banks of White River, which began to the north at Bottle Lake. Of course, the river could be impossible to swim across, but downstream stood a bridge that took the Great Wall hallway across into Teacher City. If I'm ever going to get to capital S, capital C, capital H, capital O, capital L, he told himself, I'll have to cross that bridge in plain view of all those teachers. He started hiking along the riverbank. Once, twice, 3 times he slipped on the hardened glue that had lapped up onto the shore. When he finally reached the speckled tiled road, he crouched behind a wastebasket as a yellow bus zoomed by. The bridge spanned the river a short distance away. From this point, Bradley could see it was constructed entirely of popsicle sticks glued together. Below the bridge, a dozen teachers with long fishing poles were fishing in the White River. Apparently, they had ridden there on bicycles, for a bike rack close by was nearly full. Just what I need, Bradley said. He stole from his hiding place and lifted a bike from the rack. He checked the road both ways before climbing on, then pedaled like mad. He reached the bridge in high gear. He didn't look back. He didn't look at the river of glue beneath him. His eyes remained fixed on a large bulletin board on the far side. If I can make it behind that thing, I'll be out of sight and safe, he said. Up, down, pumped his knees. Never had his legs moved so fast. Luckily, his gym teacher had been making him do lots of exercises during PE. When he finally got across the bridge, he squeezed the handbrakes. He skidded to a stop behind the bulletin board and leaped off the bike. On his knees, he peered around the cork to read the yellow cutout letters thumbtacked to it. Teacher City. Crabapple, capital of the world. Below this notice read, Today's substitutes. Mrs. Penn substituting for Mr. Pencil. Miss Glue substituting for Mrs. Paste. Mr. Marker substituting for Mrs. Crayon. Today's events. 10 o'clock, birthday party for Mr. Sparkling Spanking Machine. 12 o'clock, goodbye party for Miss Yearbook. 2 o'clock, assembly at capital S, capital C, capital H, capital O, capital L. Teacher of the day, misspelling. Before him lay the intersection of 2 busy roads, Teacher Boulevard and Teacher Avenue. The streets teemed with teachers. Teachers scurried in and out of the tall red brick buildings. Teachers walked in straight rows along the sidewalks. Teachers filled the yellow buses that rattled up and down the streets, and teachers on bicycles wove between the buses. Bradley read several billboards posted along Teacher Avenue. Reading is no fun. Watch the video made from the book instead. Learning times tables is stupid. Use a calculator. Don't do it. Teach it. He pulled the paper back from his pocket and consulted the map again. Capital S, capital C, capital H, capital O, capital L. Is 15 blocks up Teacher Avenue, he said. If I stay in the shadows of these tall buildings, I bet I can make it all the way without being seen. Bradley waited for a line of teachers to pass, then darted into the first doorway down the avenue. This happened to be the doorway of the teacher toy store. He paused long enough to admire the items in the display window: plastic counting blocks, number lines, abacuses, play clocks, 10 rods, scales, and fake money. All the stuff we use in math class, he said. Keeping in the shadows, Bradley next dodged into the doorway of the teacher rhythm instrument market. He would have loved to mess around with the tambourines and triangle cymbals and drums displayed in this window, but he had to keep moving. By ducking from doorway to doorway past the teacher cupcake bakery, Halloween Valentine party supplies, Room Mother's rental agency, and the field trip travel agency, Bradley made his way down Teacher Avenue without being spotted by a single teacher. At the corner stood a teacher wearing an orange vest. She held a stop sign attached to a stick. When she stepped into the yellow crosswalk, 2 buses came to a halt and a long string of teachers crossed the street in single file. Bradley waited for the traffic guard to turn her back before bolting across the road himself. Now he stood in the doorway of the largest building on the street, a brass plaque on the wall read, Teacher, Textbook, Factory. Curious, Bradley slipped into an alley by the side of the building. Through an open window, he spotted crooked stacks of shiny new textbooks. Two teachers, a big-eared man in a black turtleneck and a sharp-nosed woman in a blue pantsuit, sat behind computer screens. Putting his ear to the window, Bradley heard the man say, So how is your science book coming along, Miss Rubberband? Great fun, Mr. Fire Drill, the woman replied. Operation Misteach has certainly made textbook writing more interesting. Get this. I'm writing a chapter about magnets. I'm telling those cuckoo-brained children that two magnets will attract only if they like each other. Har har. Magnets will attract only if they like each other. Har har. If they hate each other, they will repel. Isn't that a gas? Yes, sirree, replied Mr. Firedrill. Today I'm rewriting the social studies book, and I've thought up some whoppers. Did you know Greenland is named that because everything there is painted green? Did you know Iceland is one big skating rink? Yes, sirree. And tomorrow we write the history book, said Miss Rubberband. Get this. Head teacher has ordered us to write that she was the teacher who discovered America, and she invented the telephone, and she walked on the moon before any man did. Har har. Rewrite the past, and you've rewritten the present, she told me. Bradley had heard enough. He left the alley, muttering to himself. 3 blocks farther down Teacher Avenue, he stood on the edge of the town square. In the center of the square stood a gazebo where 8 teachers sat playing plastic recorders. Hot cross buns, said Bradley, recognizing the tune. Dozens of other teachers picnicking on peanut butter sandwiches and cartons of milk sat on the crabgrass enjoying the concert. The only place Bradley could find to hide was inside a dumpster. He hoisted himself up and dropped inside. Flies buzzed around his head as he crouched on empty shoe boxes, wads of colored paper, egg cartons, toilet paper tubes, and old newspapers. How am I ever going to get across that park? He asked himself. He sat thinking until, bang! Bradley peered over the edge of the metal container. An empty yellow bus was rolling slowly down Teacher Avenue. Bang, bang! The bus backfired again, and then with a loud squeal of brakes, it stopped next to Bradley's dumpster. With horror, he watched the front door of the bus fold open. In the driver's seat, squeezing tightly behind the steering wheel, sat a large man. He wore an oil-stained T-shirt that shone almost as brightly as his bald black head. The bus driver pointed a finger the size of a hot dog at the dumpster. The finger curled, beckoning Bradley to come into the bus. This is it, Bradley said to himself. I'm in for it now. Capital S, capital C, capital H, capital O, capital L. The musicians in the gazebo played the Itsy Bitsy Spider on the recorders. 3 origami birds tweeted along in the crabapple trees. The teachers spread out on the crabgrass continued to picnic and chatter, but inside the dumpster, Bradley sat frozen in fear. Again, the man in the yellow bus motioned to him. Psst! Young gentleman, he called out. I can see you in that dumpster. No hiding from me. Bradley searched for a safe place to run to, but teachers filled the square in front of him, and teachers filled the sidewalk behind him. Come on, Bradley, step on it, called the bus driver. I'm no teacher. Now get on this bus. Bradley decided to chance it. He climbed from the dumpster and leaped up the stairs of the bus. He slumped low in the front seat. Are you one of the Apple Island castaways? He asked. The large man pulled out a silver crank, and the door closed. You got it, young gentleman, he said. The name's Bus Driver, Mr. Bus Driver. I've been following the news of your escape on the bus radio all day, and I'm telling you the teachers are steaming mad about that. I figured I might be headed for the teacher city, so I came looking for you. I need to find my class, said Bradley. I need to save them from Operation Misteach. Mr. Bus Driver turned the ignition key. Bang! The motor backfired, then roared. It so happens I dropped off your class at capital S, capital C, capital H, capital O, capital L this morning, the man said. The teachers are up to something big. They've been packing into that place all afternoon. Not even when the teachers get ready to hibernate around Christmas have I seen them this excited. I'll take you to capital S, capital C, capital O, H, capital O, capital L right away. With a sputter, more bangs, and a grinding of gears, the bus rattled down Teacher Avenue. Sitting low in the seat, Bradley watched the driver's eyes in the rearview mirror. How'd you end up on Apple Island, Mr. Bus Driver? He asked. The man smiled into the mirror. It's a crazy story, young gentleman, but if you want to hear it, I have time to tell it. You see, when I was a boy, my greatest passion was puttering with motors. I loved taking them apart and timing how fast I could put them back together. There wasn't a motor in the world I couldn't assemble blindfolded. When I got older, I wanted to drive anything with a motor: cars, motorcycles, semis, fire engines, lawnmowers, tractors, dragsters, bulldozers, golf carts, powerboats, you name it. I even became a pilot so I could fly airplanes, jets, and helicopters. But one night, while I was flying a small plane, this crazy thing happened. You see, the night was spectacular. Every star in the heavens was blinking, and every constellation, the Big Dipper, Draco the Dragon, Orion the Hunter, appeared not as a group of stars, but as a clear picture. I'm telling you, young gentlemen, the Milky Way was as White River flowing with glue. Well, I was studying the constellation Cancer the Crab when all at once the entire constellation began to move. No fooling. That giant crab in the sky started waving one of its claws at me. Needless to say, I was riveted. I couldn't take my eyes off the thing, and I steered my plane straight for it. For hours, mesmerized by that waving crab, I flew my plane out over the ocean. Finally, the motor coughed and cut out. No more gas. Lucky for me, I spotted the twinkling lights of an island and managed to glide the plane toward it. It so happened that I landed on the grand playground of Apple Island. Crabby teachers holding flashlights suddenly surrounded my plane and tied me up with jump ropes. I've been their captive driving the Apple Island Express bus ever since. To this day, the remains of my plane serve as a climbing structure on their playground. Just as he finished the story, Mr. Bus Driver drove the yellow bus past a chain link fence and a sign reading, Teacher City, Public, capital S, capital C, capital H, capital O, capital O, capital L. Beyond the fence stood a beige L-shaped building. The sight caused Bradley to sit up and straight in his seat. The structure was a copy of his school. The same large windows, the same tall gym, the same flagpole out front, although the flag flying from this one was green with a large red apple and a small yellow apple in the middle. Mr. Bus Driver ran a hand over his smooth head. Now, young gentleman, he said, how are you planning to get inside that building? If this capital S, capital C, capital H, capital O, capital L is the twin of my school, I know lots of ways to sneak in, Bradley said. It comes in handy whenever I'm tardy. Mr. Bus Driver parked the bus in front. He pulled on the door crank and Bradley slipped from the bus. He ran to the side of the building where he found the cafeteria kitchen door. As he had hoped, the door opened when Bradley pulled on the handle. He quickly slipped inside the kitchen past the serving counter and into the cafeteria. He could have found his way there with his eyes shut. Apparently lunch had just ended, for messy spoons and half-filled bowls of applesauce still lay on the long tables. Bradley eyed the leftovers. I'm starving, he muttered, but Mr. Janitor had good reason to warn me against eating southern apples. Walking down the hallway, Bradley passed the office and the library, both vacant. He entered a classroom, a duplicate of his own, complete with 5 rows of desks, a green blackboard, and a metal teacher's desk. But why did every item have a label on it? A small sticker above the coat closet read coat closet, and a sticker on the bulletin board said bulletin board, and the pencil sharpener had a tag on it that said students use only with permission, and a squirt gun sitting on the teacher's desk had a label that had forbidden. Bring! After the bell rang, a voice boomed over a loudspeaker. Attention, class. Form a straight line in the hallway. The assembly will begin in 5 minutes. At once, the classroom door across the hall opened, and out came Bradley's class, marching in single file. As if guided by some remote control, they stood in a line so straight it could have been made with a ruler. That's strange, thought Bradley. No one is talking. No one is shoving or taking cuts. Spying no teacher, he called out, Hey, Dunk! Hey, Errol, it's me, Bradley. What's happening? But no one turned. No one said a word. Hey, everybody, Bradley called out. There's free ice cream in the cafeteria. Still, no one moved. Something was very wrong. Class, proceed to the gym, ordered the voice on the loudspeaker. On command, the class marched toward the end of the hall. Bradley cut in line behind Duncan. When none of his classmates protested, he told himself, something's wrong. Something's terribly wrong with my class. They're doing exactly what the teachers tell them to do.